What if I told you that you could win any argument, calm the most heated conflict, and persuade the most stubborn individual without raising your voice or pulling a single manipulative trick out of your sleeve? You, sitting in your little corner of the world, probably scoff at that idea. But let me tell you, humans, verbal judo is the art form you never knew you needed. I stumbled across this book in the most bizarre way, scrolling through police testimonials out of all places, trying to understand how people under immense pressure manage to keep their cool. I mean, the author of this book, George J. Thompson, was not only a cop, but also a karate black belt. Talk about someone who knows a thing or two about holding power without flexing it. And what he has done here is nothing short of martial arts for your tongue. If you've ever had someone look you dead in the eyes and verbally undress you, this is the book that gives you the ultimate revenge without the drama. Let's get to that Kansas altercation where the whole idea of verbal judo first blew George's mind. Picture a rookie cop walking into a war zone of a domestic dispute at 2 a.m. while you're trying not to get in over your head. His partner, an experienced veteran, waltzes in like he owns the place, grabs a newspaper off the couch, and pretends it's another day at the office. No commands, no yelling, just a silent vibe of, I'm here, you're gonna listen. And somehow that works. The couple, too stunned by the boldness, stops fighting long enough to let him ask for the phone, just a casual request that threw them off guard. That's where you begin to see it. This is communication judo. It's about flipping the energy of the situation, using the force of confusion, surprise, and sheer calmness to break tension. The couple didn't even know what hit them, but they complied, and suddenly the fight was over. Here's the thing, you don't win conflicts by throwing orders like you're some overlord. No one, and I mean no one, responds well to come here or you wouldn't understand. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a badge or if you're the boss at work. People react to being treated like children or inferiors by resisting harder. That's rule one of verbal judo. When you start dishing out demands without context, you're not communicating, you're barking. You've instantly lost the moment, the person, the connection. Instead, it's all about drawing them in with calm, polite engagement. It's the difference between slapping someone with words and asking them to dance. It's not a fight, it's a pull, and you're always pulling them toward you. Take next time you feel the urge to give a direct order, ask yourself, how would you feel if someone did that to you? It's a tiny shift, but it changes everything. Oh, how you humans underestimate this powerful tool. Let's break down the word for you. It's about seeing through someone else's eyes. Empathy is your magic wand in communication. And no, it's not about sympathy. You don't have to feel sorry for the other person or even like them. But you do have to see where they're coming from. I know that sounds soft, but trust me, it's the killer move in verbal judo. George proved this when he dealt with a suicidal man threatening to electrocute himself in a bathtub. Instead of pleading with him to value his life, George went down the empathy route, describing in gruesome detail how horrific electrocution would be, then calmly listing easier ways to die. The sheer audacity of it snapped the man out of his self-destructive fog. You see, George met him where he was, not where George thought he should be. That's empathy, and it's as powerful as any verbal punch. Have you ever been stuck in a conversation that's so one-sided, you're screaming inside for the person to just shut up? Yeah, we've all been there. But let me hit you with some truth. There's a way out without being rude or impatient. You've got to paraphrase. I know, sounds simple, right? But here's the kicker. When you paraphrase, you're not just cutting them off, you're showing you've been listening. A simple, hang on, I just want to make sure I got that right, can flip a conversation faster than a light switch. Suddenly, you're back in control without ever raising your voice or showing irritation. That's the essence of verbal judo. You don't need to bulldoze through people's words, you just need to pivot them into something you can work with. Even when they're wrong, paraphrasing softens the blow, giving you space to guide the conversation back into something sane. Let's talk about the inner enemies of communication. Those annoying little voices in your head that tell you to snap back, shout louder, or out-authorize someone who's challenging you. George named his wanna bet voice, that irritating reaction that makes you want to assert dominance when someone rubs you the wrong way. We all have these moments, whether it's someone flexing their connections or just plain defiance. But here's the brutal truth. Every time you let that inner enemy take control, you've lost. It's like putting all your emotional baggage on the table and inviting chaos to join the conversation. What George teaches us is to name that enemy. Once you do, you have the power to recognize when it's about to hijack your calm. You can step back, breathe, and avoid that explosion. Just knowing it's there is half the battle won. Humans, let's be real, you're not as in control as you think, and verbal judo helps you regain that control. Now, let's get into the art of translation, and I don't mean Google Translate kind of stuff. This is about taking your raw thoughts, emotions, and intentions and shaping them into words that the other person can actually understand. You might think you're being clear, but I promise you, most of the time you're speaking a different language entirely. Effective communication isn't just about spitting out words, it's about crafting them for the person standing in front of you. This is why George stresses tailoring your approach based on who you're talking to. You don't talk to a grandma the same way you would a teenage skateboarder. It's not rocket science, but it takes awareness. You need to know your audience and adapt. It's a mental chess game. Are your words landing the way you intend? If not, guess what? You just wasted a bunch of breath, and the other person is left scratching their head. Tone. It's something you humans underestimate constantly. You could be saying the most beautiful, profound words, but if your tone is off, you might as well be reciting a grocery list. George breaks down how tone can make or break communication. Let me put it this way. If you're a cop on the beat, you can't speak to a teenager the same way you'd talk to a frightened elderly woman. The trick is in finding the right balance of authority, respect, and approachability. Too much force, and you've got a rebellion on your hands. Too little, and you're ignored. Verbal judo is all about mastering this delicate dance. And here's the kicker. You need to shift your tone with every conversation. Autopilot won't cut it. The next time you're in a heated moment, pause and ask yourself, what tone does this situation really need? I bet you're not doing that nearly enough. Now picture this. You've just walked into a bar to deal with some guy who's smashed a bottle and is ready to fight. He's twice your size and 3 times as angry. Classic bar brawl situation, right? George was in this exact scenario, and you know what he didn't do? He didn't puff up his chest or try to physically dominate the situation. Instead, he used mediation. Mediation in verbal judo is like waving a white flag, not to surrender, but to get everyone on the same page. George asked the man if he really planned on cutting him with the bottle, calmly explaining how that would turn a small charge into a serious felony. This wasn't just about defusing the situation. It was about laying out the facts in a way that gave the aggressor a clear choice. The result? The guy dropped the bottle. No force, no threats, just pure logic and clarity. So you think you've got your relationship under control? Think again. George tells the story of his buddy, newly married, stepping into a family of 4 kids from a previous marriage. One day, out of nowhere, his wife explodes, accusing him of undermining her authority in front of the kids. Shock? Anger? Yeah, all that and more. But instead of turning it into a full-blown domestic war, this is where verbal judo kicks in hard. First, he could have stopped everything with a simple, empathetic pause. Whoa, hang on, let's make sure I'm hearing you right. That single moment of calm and paraphrasing would have pulled the conversation from rage to reason. Arguments don't have to be battlegrounds. They can be the moment where real communication happens, if you let it. But let's be real for a second. Why does communication break down so easily? It's because most of you are too busy waiting for your turn to speak instead of actually listening. I see it all the time, and you probably do too. People get caught up in their own narrative, their own emotions, and forget that the person across from them is living a completely different reality. Verbal judo teaches you that communication isn't just about the words coming out of your mouth. It's about absorbing what's being thrown at you, processing it, and responding without getting emotionally hijacked. If you can learn to master this, you'll find that conversations, even heated ones, will start to flow more naturally. The more you listen, the more control you actually gain. Speaking of listening, there's an art to it, and verbal judo turns it into a masterclass. George isn't just saying, yeah, listen more. No, he's showing you that listening is control. When you listen, you guide the conversation. It's like gathering intel before a battle. And guess what? While the other person is spilling their thoughts, you're learning everything you need to know to steer the outcome. Active listening puts you in the driver's seat. That's the hidden power of it. Most people think control comes from being the loudest voice in the room. Wrong. Control comes from being the quietest, most observant person. Listening is your weapon, and paraphrasing is your shield. Think of Michael Jordan for a second, one of the most intense athletes to ever walk the court. When the pressure mounted, when the game was on the line, he didn't crack. In fact, he thrived under pressure, and that's exactly what verbal judo aims to teach. You're not just learning how to diffuse a domestic argument or calm a street brawl, you're learning how to become a pro under pressure. George calls this becoming a contact professional. It's about hitting that next level where no situation rattles you because you've mastered your inner enemies, your tone, and your ability to listen. Like Jordan with the ball in his hands, you'll be in full control when the stakes are highest. So now you've got all these tools: paraphrasing, listening, empathy, tone, but how do you pull it all together? Simple. You use them like building blocks, constructing a bridge between you and the other person. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with a pissed-off spouse or a belligerent stranger in a bar, the principles stay the same. When you take a breath, let go of your ego, and lean into these techniques, you'll find that even the most difficult people can become compliant. It's not about manipulation, it's about giving people the respect they didn't even know they wanted. When you use verbal judo, you're not just talking, you're changing the game. And now we reach the final piece of this puzzle, working on your own communication flaws. I know, it's tempting to think you've got this down after reading Verbal Judo, but George wants you to dig deeper. Just like he had to name his inner enemy, you've got to figure out what trips you up in conversations. Maybe it's pride, maybe it's impatience, or maybe it's just the fear of being wrong. Whatever it is, until you face that demon, you'll always be on the defensive, fighting to keep control instead of effortlessly guiding it. The real power in verbal judo comes when you're aware of your weaknesses and can pivot around them like a master. Welcome to the black belt level of communication, humans. If you found this insightful, hit that like button, share it with someone who could use a little verbal judo in their life, and of course, subscribe to stay in the loop for more mind-expanding content. Drop a comment below if you've ever had a moment where you wished you had these skills. Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, thanks for your time and attention. Stay sharp, stay curious, and keep mastering the gentle art of persuasion.